sir?
2 Whoppers, 2 Whopper Juniors, and 4 Coca-Cola. And would I have to wait long if you made 1 Whopper with no pickle and no lettuce?
No, sir. Hold the pickle, hold the lettuce. Special orders don't upset us. All we ask is that you let us serve it your way.
We are back, and as you can see on the screen, the handsome gentleman to my left is Bruno Hilgart of St. Charles, a St. Charles High School graduate, I might add, and he roamed the halls while I roamed the halls back a number of years ago. I'll let Bruno decide whether he wants to tell us how long ago. Bruno, first of all, it's great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. It's 40 years ago this month I graduated high school.
Oh man,
Yes.
You're killing me. Time really flying here when we're having fun. And speaking of having fun, I'm holding up his book, French Fry Leadership, How to Attain Profits Through Serving People. Bruno has written this book. And I guess the opening question, Bruno, to get us started would be a little bit of your backdrop in St. Charles, growing up, and then the road traveled to get to this point where you're involved in fast food management over the course of your career.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Yes, I did grow up in St. Charles. I currently reside in St. Charles, raised my family in Geneva for 30 years. So had to be a Viking for a while there when my kids were in high school. But I graduated high school and did not go to college and was blessed to be a part of a growing franchise. Had started working there when I was a junior in high school, and then the fall of '83, we opened our second location, and at 17, I became an assistant manager. Then at 20, I was blessed to get my first opportunity to run a restaurant in Elgin at our third location. And then from the age of 30, I worked for 16 years as the face of the franchise. And the owner that I worked for, Bill Gill, he understood the value of investing in his leaders. So I was having a lot of game-changing moments early in my career, going to seminars and leadership courses and classes that were week-long. We never even talked about Whoppers and French fries. We talked about people. And so I had a lot of influential opportunities early on in my career. And then later in my career, I was blessed to have been exposed to some of the best motivational speakers in the world, and how they, and companies that lead in their respective industries, on how they source, how they onboard, how they train and retain people. So, I've noticed that, there's a dearth of good leadership out there today, sadly, and it's not the leaders' faults. Many people are put in positions to fail, and they just haven't been taught how to lead, motivate, and inspire people across all industries. And I use the example, Ray and Paul, that just because somebody's good at making Whopper sandwiches and they are trustworthy, they've been dependable, they're committed, it does not mean they're going to be good at leading and motivating others to do it. It's an entirely different skill set.
Well, you emphasize that in your book. You say a good employee is not necessarily a good leader, a good manager. So I guess the question then becomes one is, as you have workers in a particular establishment who may be looking for a higher position, how do you deal with that? And how do you decide, well, you're good kid, but not good enough?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, I've had a manager one time who was really good at hitting the fastballs. And I know, we're both into baseball, so we can talk about this. And hitting a fastball is one thing, but when you take on the leadership role of an entire organization or entire department or whatever it is, now you have to hit curveballs. And it's not always easy to hit those curveballs. Companies need to invest in their people. There's such a disconnect from, and I talk about this in the book, there's such a disconnect between formal culture and organic culture. And formal culture is stuff you would see, quote, on paper or in writing, mottos, mission statements, things like that, where we care about you. If you have any questions or you have any ideas or anything like that, come to us. Our door is always open. And yet, when rubber meets the road and the employee or team member or associate or whatever you identify your people as, come to the leader and want to ask a question or have a challenge, Many times they get responses like, well, I'm kind of busy right now. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Or Ray, what kind of idea is that? We can't afford that. Basically, they make the employee feel this big. Now, how many more ideas and how many more questions are we going to get from people when the leaders are making people feel that way? So if the leaders aren't living what's on paper, then it's almost worse to it's almost worse to have it on paper, because the worst thing you can do in life, in my opinion, in any relationship, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's your boss, your subordinates, your wife, your kids, is to overpromise and underdeliver. And yet that's what happens all the time.
Let's take your specific industry, fast food,
Mhm.
and let's talk about the fact that a lot of your employees early on come out of high school, perhaps summer jobs in college, et cetera, et cetera. How do you keep them motivated when you know for a fact they're, except for perhaps a chosen few, they're not going to any higher level? They're using this as a vehicle to gather money for some future goal.
The same things you would apply to those, and the same things you would apply to the people making 6 figures a year. We all want to know our work is worthwhile. We all want to know our work is important. Now, if you're a doctor or a nurse, you know your work's important because you're helping people get well. But at our Burger Kings, we created a culture where, and every company has a culture. The culture is the vibe of a company. And every company has a culture. But we created a culture where people knew that their work was important. And we framed it around the idea that everybody that came to our restaurants every day came with challenges. Now, we don't call problems problems, we call them challenges. It's a lot about how we frame things, how we say things. It's not so much about what we say, it's how we say it. And so people came to us every day in the drive-through and at the front counter, and they had the same kind of challenges like we all have: health issues, neighbor issues, husband issues, wife issues, boss, we all have them. And we want those guests to leave in a better place mentally than when they got there. And we only had 2.5 minutes or less at the drive-through, or 3 minutes or less at the counter to make that happen. But you do it with a sincere smile, with a eye contact, with thank you, I'll see you tomorrow. Just a little, making somebody feel special. That's all. And the way we did things, Ray, led to, now maybe people might be asking, okay, so how did you compare to your peers and your competitors and such? And we tracked a lot of things, okay? And one of the things that we tracked that always is important to me is turnover and average tenure of our team members. And our turnover was 1/3 of the industry average. The industry average in restaurants and quick service restaurants is 200 to 300%. So that means if you have 30 people on your staff and your turnover is 200%, that's you're hiring 60 people throughout the year just to keep 30. And that's more than one a week that you're training and spending lots of money on and starting over with people. Our turnover was 1/3 of the industry average, and our average tenure for our hourly team members was 3.5 years. And it's not because they were getting paid lots of money, it's because they were having fun and they were valued and they were appreciated. You keep these people, Ray, by catching them doing things right. Anybody can point out problems, but can we find something good? Can we focus on, oh, those pickles on that Whopper are not overlapped. The ketchup is outside in, a little in every bite. I used to get excited about hot, salty, crispy French fries. People thought it was nuts sometimes, but you know what? That's what we did. We weren't trying to find the cure for cancer. Thank goodness people do that. We weren't laying pipe outside so our toilets flush in the morning, Ray. I don't know about you, but I appreciate that. But what we were trying to do is create a dining experience, a drive-through experience, and a takeout experience such that people would drive by 2 McDonald's, a Chick-fil-A, and a Wendy's and come to Burger King and bite into that Whopper and go, holy crap, why would I stop anywhere else for a burger again? Now, hopefully you feel that passion.
Now you
have to have passion.
You talked in your book, and you said, and I quote, I think it's labeled a chapter, I have never fired anyone. You say, and your story that you tell in conjunction with that is kind of interesting. You talk about the drive-through, you talk about you checking in at the drive-through and then having this conversation with this young woman who had a bad night before and didn't greet you very well. Tell our audience a little bit about that particular incident as it relates to I never fired anyone. They fire themselves. Go ahead.
I think as a leader, that when things go well, you have to pass on the credit to everyone else. And when things don't go well, you step up and take accountability without pointing fingers. And that's very difficult for most people to do. It's so easy to say, well, I don't know why Ray's not doing it. We coached him, we taught him, we trained him. I don't know why he's being rude to customers. But the last thing that any employer or leader wants to do is have to fire somebody or get rid of somebody, because you spent all this time and effort finding them and hiring them and orientating them and training them. I mean, everyone's costing a company a certain amount of money for X amount of time before they're ever making a company money. So the last thing you want to do is fire somebody. However, my viewpoint is that people fire themselves through their actions or inactions. And again, we never coached the person to be late for work all the time. We never coached the person to steal resources or money. We never coached the person to be rude to the paying customers. I mean, there was no magic money tree growing money outside to pay the bills, including our paychecks. All the bills, including our paychecks, were paid by the money coming through that drive-through window or at the front counter. And everyone knew that. So people fire themselves through their actions or inactions. And darn it, we have to start over that whole hiring process, which costs us a lot of time and a lot of money. So the last thing I ever wanted to do was get rid of somebody. Now, with that being said, at some point, if people are not performing, then we have the conversation with them and we let them know, if your hours are being cut, now your hours are being cut because we've tried, we've done the progressive improvement plan, we've talked about it, and we want you to leave on good terms. So put me down as a reference, but we're looking for your replacement.
Now, we're going to take a small break for one of the words from one of our sponsors. And when we return, I'm going to ask Bruno this question. What do you learn over the course of time from your competitors? He's alluded to several that he has. And so what do they learn? What do they find out about competitors, and how does that make them a better player in the marketplace? Stay tuned. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. I'd like to say a few words about my friends at the Karas Group of Restaurants, one of our sponsors. I've been a frequent guest at all of their fine restaurants for years, one of which is Rookies, which has locations throughout the Fox Valley and beyond. My favorite dish at Rookies is the gyros plate with the Saganaki appetizer. Oopa! My wife, she loves the Hall of Fame chicken sandwich. But I can honestly say that I've never had a bad meal there, regardless of whatever I've had to eat. The wings are out of this world, the salads are delicious, great burgers, tacos, all-American specialties, and don't forget their pizza. And of course, you can wash this all down with one of their famous Mai Tais. Try them out. St. Charles, Geneva, Elgin, Hoffman Estates, Huntley, and Roselle. RookiesPub.com. I'll see you there. Well, we're back, and we're with Bruno Hilgart, author of this particular book, French Fry Leadership. You talk in your book, and you actually devote a chapter to what I call partnering with the partners. Yep. You talk about the relationships you have with a variety of people who either provide you with resources, or maybe it's even the public works of the city. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, our vendors knew that we weren't paying their bills. Again, it was the guests that chose to come visit our restaurants that were paying their bills. We were just the middleman. So everything they did was important in helping us be successful at providing that amazing experience to those customers, those guests. So, you know, I valued our relationships we had with partners. We didn't always go with the least expensive vendor. You know, there was a lot more to value than just the price of something, of course. And, you know, I tried to go out of my way to catch even the vendors doing something right. And it was amazing how dedicated these people were to us. Now, granted, we paid our bills on time. Of course, they appreciated that a lot as well. But beyond, and they didn't have to spend time chasing money. But at the same time, you know, when the guy who's working on your HVAC unit at 90 degrees and he's on your roof sweating his butt off trying to fix your unit or maintain it or whatever, and I was pretty involved. I mean, we had 9 restaurants, so we had a little smaller scale, and so I knew when there were vendors in our restaurants, I was oftentimes the ones who made the call. And I made it a point to try to stop by and appreciate those guys and let them know that what they do makes a difference. And if they take 6 screws out of an HVAC panel, that they put 6 screws back, because if they leave 3 on the roof and somebody steps on it, now we've got a hole on the roof and we're leaking in the dining room and we got an image issue. And they appreciated that. Vendor partnerships, that's what it's all about. And whether it's at a corporate level, like a supplier who's supplying beef patties or negotiating contracts for, you know, ketchup packets or whatever, or at the local level when you hire your landscapers and you hire your repair and maintenance people or whatever, it's very important to have a good, strong relationship with those people.
As I promised, I was going to ask you this question before the break. What have you learned from your competitors? What positive things you take back? Did you take back to Burger King that you may have picked up from Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Wendy's, or whoever?
It's interesting that you asked that question, Ray, and I really appreciate you diving into the book like you have. Chick-fil-A is the gold standard with service. You know, hell, it's my pleasure when you want something. But it kind of irks me because we were doing that at our Burger Kings before Chick-fil-A was even in this market. And to be fair, I learned these things when I went to the global conventions and I went to the regional meetings, and I was exposed to companies like Disney, Ritz-Carlton, Harley-Davidson, and learning how they bring on people and how they retain people. For example, at Ritz-Carlton, their team members or associates or whatever they called them were ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And of course, at a Ritz-Carlton, you pay more for your room, but when you ask for something they don't tell you, they don't point to it, they take you. So like I said, value is more than just price. But McDonald's, I mean, let's face it, I used to bring up McDonald's during the orientations that we did with our team members. Imagine you're driving down the road in Podunk, Iowa, and you have Bruno's Burgers, best burgers in the valley, you know, Ray's chicken sandwiches, whatever, and then you have McDonald's. Where are you going to go? You're going to go to McDonald's. Why? Because you know what you're going to get. There's no risk. It's very consistent. You know what it's going to taste like. You know about what you're going to pay for it. And, you know, Burger King hasn't always been that way. You know, there's some Burger Kings that are very nice looking, others that need a remodel. There's some that operate very well, others very inconsistent. So one of the things I learned was how the value of being consistent. So we tracked so many things, from sales to traffic to speed of service to turnover, a lot of things that we tracked. And we wanted our restaurants, we don't want you to be a 90 one day and a 50 the next day. We'd rather be a 70 working our way towards the 90, because your guests are going to be trusting your brand that way. And that's what you have at some of our competitors. That's one of the biggest things I learned from some of our competitors.
Now, I tell people this, and I'm sure Paul's got a story or two as well, but I worked for Kroger back in college, and I worked for, going against everything you talk about in the book, I worked for a dictatorial manager of the store and a dictatorial produce manager who I worked directly under to provide, produce in the store. Despite all that, I learned that I had to deal with people and deal with them well in order to keep my job and move along. So I learned that, and I think that went to my what I feel to be a good career as a teacher, and then as a government servant later on. My question to you is, have you seen after the fact people who did great jobs working with people in your stores move along to greater successes somewhere else?
Great question. I had some twins working for me at one point whose father owned a local construction company in the area, and they didn't need to work. They lived out west and they had beautiful home and all that kind of stuff. But the father and I had conversations off and on, not that often, but he wanted them to learn from someone besides him. And he was so appreciative of the lessons and the values and things that his boys were learning at my Burger King. I felt honored to always, with the parents. I mean, there were times where, like you say, first jobs for some people, and they didn't have anything on their resume. So I called their parents as a reference and got to know the parents. And yes, there are people in this area that have made careers out of other things. And you've seen commercials probably for McDonald's. They have such a marketing budget where this pilot began his career at McDonald's. This nurse began her career at McDonald's. And it's because the things that you learn at a restaurant and the service industry are things you're going to have to do in any career. You have to have people skills. You have to be polite to people. You have to be on time. You have to be dependable. You have to be trustworthy. You have to have customer. I often say people were learning, why do people stick around? Why do people want to come back and work with us? College kids, they call me up all the time. Can I get some hours? It's because they're having fun. They're learning a lot. They're learning how to, about food safety, about teamwork, working with people that you might not know or might necessarily not like. I mean, these are things that we're all going to have to deal with at some point. And the sooner you deal with it at a young age, the more successful you can apply those things more successfully in whatever career that you choose. So yeah, I'm very proud of the fact that there are many people who have cycled through my leadership who have gone on to have success in other careers.
Yeah, that McDonald's story, the pilot, right, who started at McDonald's. I'm still waiting on my phone call for that. So, if if you know anybody, put in a word, will you? Okay.
I was hired on a 2-week trial basis, and I never heard back. But so 30 years later, anyway.
Well, my last question here, Bruno, we really appreciate your time today. You talk in the book about the fact that not only do you lecture now here, there, and everywhere on management skills, but you've had a lot of interaction with lawmakers for this or that reason. Perhaps you can enlighten our audience as to why would a past leader of a fast food restaurant be interacting with and talking to and lobbying with lawmakers, and maybe you want to put even in a comment about how do you feel about lawmakers regarding your interaction?
Ray, you and I, we have had some good conversations with that. But you know what? I was blessed the better we did as a franchise. I mean, we were the training franchise for our corporate representative. So in other words, she would bring new franchisees on to our restaurants to train them, or she would host training seminars on new product rollouts at our restaurants. We were franchisee of the year in 2003. So the better we did with all our measurable results, the more they wanted to spread the will. So I was asked by the regional vice president, who at the time actually lived in Batavia, to serve on an Ops Excellence Advisory Committee. I was asked to serve on a Government Affairs Committee. So I've been to DC 4 times in my career, and we had a list of proposed legislation that DC was wanting to pass, and things that would have made it more difficult for us to take care of our people. I feel so bad for a lot of businesses today. There's so many things they have to deal with, and somebody gets a hangnail and they can call off sick. I used to joke with new hires that how important it was to be dependable and how important it was to show up for work by saying, see that marquee outside that has 2 Whoppers for $5 on it? I said, we can't put a message up there, Ray, that says, "Hi, welcome to Burger King. Sorry, your service is slow and your bathrooms are trashed and the employees are stressed out and your Whoppers sloppily put together, but Ray didn't show up for work today. May I help you?" I mean, we can't do that. So anyway, I would go to DC and be in the offices of these senators and congressmen people and talking to them about this legislation. And it was enlightening because I learned from them on why they wanted to pass these laws. And then they learned from us on how detrimental these would be in some ways to allowing us to continue to take care of our people. And it was like little light bulbs going off over their heads. And again, it's not their fault. Many of them were in their 20s, right out of Ivy League schools, and honestly just didn't have enough life experience to really understand, that, oh, wow, I never thought about that. Okay. I had a 15-minute conversation with Amy Klobuchar one time. We didn't agree on much, but it was respectful, and she shook her head a couple times, and I did the same thing. I mean, I'm not a my way or the highway kind of guy. Never have been. I want to learn from people and why they think the way they think. And I just enjoyed it. I met Newt Gingrich. He's a very engaging man, and I was just blessed to be there. I just felt so honored to be a part of our government system in that way.
There's a great story about George McGovern. To your point about life experience, George McGovern, who was in Congress for forever, of course, ran for president. He retired and started his own. He and his wife started a bed and breakfast. That was going to be their retirement activity, and he, at that point, had to start living under some of the rules that he had promulgated when he was in power, and he couldn't believe it. They went bankrupt, and he said, "I never had any idea that all of these regulations, how they impact the running of a business." And he said, "I couldn't do it." So unfortunately, it came too late for him. But your point about life experiences is really a key one. And sometimes they just don't understand how businesses work or don't work, as the case may be.
We need regulations. We need government oversight. I'm not against that. It's
Sure.
just that where do you draw the line to the point where you're helping so much that you're hurting?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's no question in my mind that there's a happy balance between some regulations necessary and allowing a business, the captains of industry, to be able to spur the economy with a variety of choices for consumers. Well, I agree with you 100%. Time has flown, Bruno, and I know that you're on a time clock today as well. And we appreciate you getting in here and talking to us. The book, French Fry Leadership, Bruno Hilgart, available, first of all, through the publisher, Kohler Books, but also Amazon, Barnes & Noble in Geneva. You probably go to Townhouse Books in St. Charles and order it, and a variety of other bookstores as you're listening to this particular podcast. So, Bruno, let me say in closing, as a guy who was in the hallways with you 40 years ago at St. Charles High School, I'm proud of you, man. You've done a wonderful job, and I appreciate all you've done.
Thank you so much for having me, Ray. You were one of the teachers that made an impact on me. I only had you for a semester of business law, and I've joked with you that I lost in the first round of your mock trial to the runner-up that year.
I hear that all the time.
By 1 point, and I took exception with you on that. I don't know if you remember that, but I always respected you, and I've always respected you, and I thank you for serving our town of St. Charles as well as you did. And I would like to just close by saying to people who are listening to this that the book, it is based on my 30 years of managing and growing up in a Burger King franchise. However, the lessons and the learnings in the book spill over into any and all industries. And I would encourage you, the chapters are short. I don't know about you, but when I'm reading a book, I don't like to stop mid-chapter. It's only 120 pages long. I don't want to lecture all day. Nobody wants to be lectured to too long. So I hope people would buy the book, enjoy the book, and more importantly, apply it in their lives.
Thank you, Bruno. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Bruno.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And we'll be right back.
Have a great day.
All right, we're back, and we enjoyed Bruno Hilgart today and the book, French Fry Leadership. We hope you enjoyed it as well. So, for our missing interviewer in action, Pat Crimmins, again, fighting for justice somewhere, and wherever he's fighting, we hope he succeeds. For our illustrious producer and co-host today, Paul Stukel. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it very much. This is Ray Rogina saying so long and reminding you that the days are longer and the nights are stronger. At least America sang that in Ventura Highway. And summer is here, vacation time, parties, gatherings outdoors. Just a simple reminder. Be sane, be logical, be sensitive, and as always, my friends, be safe. We'll see you next time. So long.
Have it your way, have it your way, have it your way at Burger King. May I help you, sir?
2 Whoppers, 2 Whopper Juniors, and 4 Coca-Cola. And would I have to wait long if you made 1 Whopper with no pickle and no lettuce?
No, sir. Hold the pickle, hold the lettuce. Special orders don't upset us. All we ask is that you let us serve it your